Welcome to the coastal British Columbian mountains, where the snow is deep and the mountains are big. I'm out here on an adventure with Tyler from Let's Get Lost to introduce him to Ruby Tracks. I'm on the mountain tracks, Tyler's on the cross-country tracks, and today we're showing him how they work. Last night, it snowed about 30 centimeters on top of about an 80 centimeter base. And there's simply no way that you could get 50 kilometers into the backcountry like this on tires. So we're using the snowtracks. And my hope is to show Tyler and all of you a little bit more about what makes tracks special and dispel some of the myths about tracks and their reliability. You see, there's no tool in my arsenal that allows me to adventure in the winter better than snow tracks. They're an often misunderstood tool, and that's because they're often used to drive views and excitement that are posted hastily during the learning curve. Make no mistake, there is a learning curve. After 20, 30, 40 years of driving wheels, using tracks can be a major departure from most of the things that you're used to. But like anything, if you master your tools and outfit your rig to deal with extreme weather and different terrain obstacles, most of it just comes down to technique and experience. And I'm glad to say that I've put in the cycles over the last couple of years to outfit my truck for these sorts of adventures. I now consider myself amongst a small group of experts who have the experience and know-how to take these tracks into the deep backcountry consistently and push them to their limits. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of content that shows how to get into this. So if you're interested in seeing what it takes to get onto tracks for the very first time and experience this awesome scenery and deep snow, head over to Tyler's channel. He'll have a video on the trip, and I'll link to it down below when it's uploaded. But for today, we're going to do an updated build video. We're going to talk about all of the things that I've added to my truck since the last build video I had almost 2 years ago. In particular, we're going to focus on the things that I've added that have allowed me to go consistently into the deep backcountry during epic snowfall and stay for multiple days on end. The only way for people like me to build this experience was in the field. So I'm hoping that by sharing it, more people will see tracks are here to stay. What's up, guys? My name's Kyle. This is my Jeep Gladiator Alley Cab. I'm out here with Tyler from Let's Get Lost and Colin, now of Hooked and Loaded. And we're out on the snow tracks. And I've been getting a lot of messages in the comments and on Instagram especially that about the tracks and the winter build. And I haven't done a build video in a long time. I don't think I've done one since I originally built the truck with the lift and the alley cab. So there's been a lot of new things that I've done with it. And today we're out here exploring around in some pretty deep snow. We've got about 20 to 30 of fresh and on top of an 80 centimeter base. And if you just watch the intro, you see these are some pretty useful tools for exploring around in the backcountry. So I'm gonna talk about the tracks, talk about a couple other things that I did, and hopefully that gets you guys better up to speed with what's going on in the truck. Well, we're gonna start with the most obvious thing, the snow tracks. We got two sets here. This is a new set that I put on this year, and this is the set that I was running last year, and we got them on Tyler's truck. The main difference between these are the original design from Ruby Tracks, and they're called the Cross Country. They're a 136-inch track base. They're built in Canada and manufactured in Canada. Scott Profit in PEI makes them. Great guy, Canadian business, support local. And then this is his new series that he came out with, or new kind of model that he came out with. We call this one the Mountain Track. And let's talk a little bit about the differences between these. All right, so the main difference with these ones is they are a 141-inch track base opposed to 136. These are about 7 inches longer and about 2 inches taller. But the key design difference is on the front. You'll see here they have this cantilevered nose. And that's really, really helpful because the whole design of tracks is meant to float on top of the snow. It's kind of like a snowmobile. A lot of people think it's more like snow wheeling, and there's aspects of it that are like that. But your goal with tracks is to float on top of the snow. When you're going slow, you don't float as much. When you go fast, you get more flotation. And so when you're going slow and you're dealing with different types of terrain deviation, these cantilevered noses on the front are really helpful, and we dealt with a lot of that on this trail today. A lot of deactivations, a lot of cross stitches, and a lot of stuff where if you're not careful, you may not be able to go through. And what you got to remember with tracks, especially with this set here because of the triangular set on them, is that they're not like a wheel. They don't roll over things. If you hit something really hard or really deep, it's a triangle, and a triangle can turn. So what we use underneath are what are called limiting straps, and those attach to the ball joints and in the back. The shock mount is kind of different per vehicle, so if you're driving something different than me, it might be different for you. But the idea there is it stops the track from rotating, and that's what allows us to do these flexy, kind of crawly sections out here in the deep, deep snow, while also having the flotation of a track. All right, so now let's talk about the tracks in the back. On the other set, all 4 tracks are more or less the same, and it's just the chain pattern that determines which ones go on the front versus on the back. But you can kind of circulate them the same way you would a tire. Now, on the mountain tracks, the back here is offset. You'll see the tower there in the track. It's pushed forward a little bit, and that's intentional. What that does is it creates more surface area on the back of the track, and for a heavy, long wheelbase Gladiator like this, it's really good because it helps float. Last year when I was running the smaller tracks, what I would often find is the track would be on sort of an angle like this, trying to stay on top of the snow. But with this, the surface area is so much longer and they're offset, so we get a lot more stable flotation and even track surface on the snow in the back, which for a heavy overland rig like mine, very important, and it really improved for performance. So I am super excited with these mountain tracks. They've made a big difference. Woo, falling into the snow, it's about knee deep. They made a big difference for me and my ability to come out here year round and get into some of these places I love to in British Columbia. Okay, so the next major thing that I've changed on the truck since the last update are the lights here and the inner fenders. I went with the American Adventure Lab, I think they call it dusk or blacked out indicator lights. I did the fender chop and the inner fenders, and I think they look really mean. They give me a lot more clearance, and I just like the look of it a lot better. The other thing I did is up top here, you'll see that I added a Trail Racks rack, a Pelican, I think it's a BX 140 cargo case, and a Baja Designs S3 50-inch light bar. So I went through a couple different light bars. I tried a rigid light bar, which was really bright. I ended up settling on this Baja one, and I really like it. One of the reasons I really like it is it has amber running lights, and I think that just looks really cool. Plus, I'm quite high, so I don't know. I just think it's a good vibe. The Pelican BX cargo case and the Trail Racks rack, I had to really manipulate them to get them on there, and to be honest with you, it hasn't always been the best fit. I got the first Trail Racks rack in Canada, and it wasn't really sized for the Alucab. They have an Alucab specific one now, but there's no box like this that will fit on it. And what I was aiming for was something that was even height and almost even width with the Alucab. I didn't want something that was increasing height. I didn't want something that was too low. I wanted to maximize, and I wanted to have a box that fit the same height and dimensions of the Alucab. I just think that looks good. So there's been some finagling. I'm still not quite happy with it. But it basically houses a lot of my recovery gear and stuff that I don't need to get to very often. Stuff that's going to be wet, muddy, whatever, that I don't want to put in the back of the Habitat, especially in the winter. Now, the last thing I'll touch on is up top. You might have noticed I've changed my Starlink. I used to have that Starlink that was hanging off the back. Everyone was taking bets on when it would smash off. Truth is I lasted a lot longer than I thought it would, but it finally started to meet its demise after I smoked it off a couple trees in Baja. And it was a slow roll from there. Eventually water got into it and it stopped working. So Starlink sent me a new one. They sent me the Gen 3 because they don't make the actuated models anymore, and the Mini wasn't out yet. It came out like 3 weeks later, which was a bummer. I might have gone with that, but the Gen 3's been pretty solid. I also used a Trio flat mount to mount it on top of the Pelican box, and I basically just drilled and Sikaflex hills through and then ran the power back to the 12 volt in the back of the alley cab. Check out Trio Flat Mounts. They're a Kelowna-based company, again, local. None of this stuff is sponsored. You guys know I don't do that, but they're local, and it's worked well for me, so check it out. Okay, the other thing that I didn't have in the last video were these jerry cans. I was waiting on the jerry can holder, so those are on now. I've got two 20-liter Wavian gas cans on here. I'm not super excited about the gas cans. The nozzles kind of aren't very great, but it lets me carry another 40 liters, and that's about half a tank. You know, I get really good mileage on the truck ever since it got deleted at Dirty Diesel, but one of the challenges I have is that when I throw the big trailer on, and we'll talk about that trailer another time, my mileage goes way down. So you want to have as much range as you can when you get out on the tracks. There's a huge gear reduction, and you're doing a lot of, like, you know, not a lot of range with them, so you can eat up gas pretty quick. So this gives me basically another 40 liters. I'm working on retrofitting kind of a custom tidy tank. And if I get that done, I'll let you guys know what that looks like. The last thing people always ask me is, how do I stay warm when I'm out here? And I talked about this in the other video, but I think it's worth covering. So I have basically over here, you'll see this propane tank that's hooked there with an Expedition Essentials holder. And here I have the GP Factor Dickinson Marine stove. It's a propane stove system, and this thing has intake and exhaust all in here. So there's no moisture, no burn off inside of the camper. Everything is a radiant heat. They're made for sailboats, these Dickinson Marine stoves, and they've been retrofitted here. So that keeps me quite warm. It also keeps everything in the gear section down below dry. I, generally speaking, will turn it on at the beginning of a weekend or even a long weekend and just leave it running the whole weekend. And that way everything inside is just kind of cycling through, getting dry, staying dry. And then when I get up top, what I have is a -18, I think, mech sleeping bag. It's a good sleeping bag. You know, I haven't usually had to go much colder than that. I think it was -14 here last night, something like that. So that usually does a pretty good job, but I just have like a 12 volt heated blanket that I throw inside of the sleeping bag with me, and that keeps me toasty warm. All right, well, we got Tyler here and Colin as well. First time out on tracks. So far, guys, what do you think of the whole tracks experience?
For myself, I mean, like, I come from running little 35s, so I'd be stuck immediately in this stuff. Tracks on, it kind of has, it's like a feeling of being invincible. Like the cross stitches, it's a bit of a learning curve too, because what would normally be just a service road in the summer, it's like you feel like you're wheeling in the winter, especially when you get up on some of the really old roads that are deactivated and you're just kind of exploring. But it's fun and it's mind blowing. Like, Kyle drove next to me yesterday, and I was up to here in the snow, and he was like my Jeep from his Jeep away, and I could feel the snow kind of cracking and compressing next to me, and I sank in, and his Jeep is just floating on top of it all, just creeping by, which is mind-blowing.
That's how we want to do it. And you, Sir Captain, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts, if I tried this with my Jeep on tires, I would have been stuck 10 feet from the trailhead, and we're currently 30 kilometers away from where I would have got stuck. So, tracks are pretty sick.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, my question to you guys is, I see a lot of stuff in the comments. People comment this in my stuff, you know, it's in other people's videos. But people think tracks are like, you just get stuck. You're always stuck. They're not reliable. They can't do as good as snow wheeling. What's your perspective on it?
I went snow wheeling last weekend, and I was in sugar snow that was hitting my diff. And I winched for 2 kilometers and burned off all my fuel trying to get like 4K. This weekend, I've burned off all my fuel, but I've done 100 kilometers and it's been effortless.
Yeah.
Way deeper snow. So they're a tool. They serve a purpose.
And we don't even have the limiters on yours, which is a little bit of a, like, you know, we're being a little irresponsible there, because that we know that is where things.
Knowing how to run your equipment.
Yeah.
If you have an expectation of thinking that you're going to run tracks the same way you're going to run tires, you need to throw that right into the trash can, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's a little learning curve, but if you go out with somebody who's run them successfully and you kind of take your time and figure it out, they're super reliable.
This is my first time on them.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, we don't even have your limiters on, which was my biggest worry going through all these cross stitches, but once you learn how they work, and it doesn't hurt to have the bumper sometimes help keep them in place.
Yeah. Fine.
Yeah.
Plastic, it gets out of the way.
Yeah, but yeah. That's awesome, guys. Well, it's been fun. We're let's make some lunch and figure out where we go next. All right. Well, and if you didn't think it was deep, once you break through the base, that's all fresh, and then there's a base underneath me. So we're definitely in some deep snow. Luckily, there is a base. These tracks float right on top of the base and just crush through what's basically like knee-deep fresh. So anyway, that's the end of the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed learning more about the build. You've been asking a lot of questions. I hope that answers them. Take a minute, if you haven't yet, subscribe, hit the like button, maybe leave a comment if you have other questions. I'll cover it in the next video. And get outside, enjoy yourself. Remember, we'll see you at the top.
Thank you.